Hey everyone, we are back at the dining room table and we have made it. We have made it through October and we are going to do our budget recap for October 16th through the 31st, so for the second half of October. Now, all the numbers here are set, we're done, we have closed the month out and we are getting started on November. So let's see what we have to see. Most of the information on here is going to pretty much be as it always is because we had quite a bit of detail that we normally don't just due to the timing of when we did this video. And hold on, I need to sneeze. Okay, sorry about that. I mean, at least you didn't have to hear it. I'm not a dainty sneezer. So let's zoom on in so we can fill out the actuals for the pay period. We've got $19.39.14 for Mr. M's pay. That did not change. $25.34.15 for my pay. That did not change either. The buffer rollover was spot on, $200.28, but we did have one difference, and that is our Etsy. We had $31.94 come in, and no miscellaneous income. So, $19.39.14. Move that over just a bit. Plus 253.4.15 plus 31.94 plus 228 cents gives us a total of $4,705.51. The mortgage payment was as normal, $875. Don't worry about those costs. And we already had the electric bill cost and the natural gas bill cost. We don't have waste management. Our Comcast, which is our internet cost, was the same. Now, our phone bill was a little higher than normal. Usually it's just under $90. This time it was $90.12. So what does that do for us? We have $875 plus $140.03 plus $22.95 plus $101 plus $90.12. Which gives us a total of $1,229.10, and we will subtract that from our total income up at the top, which gives us a remainder of $3,476.41. Now then, though we had the numbers already here for October, we are now getting into what are going to be our colder months. So where we were previously doing like a guesstimate of $150 for PG&E and for the gas bill, natural gas bill, we're going to be bumping those up to $175. And the reason we're doing that is the $150 amount was prior to rate increases and things like that, and we did let that pull through into summer, even though typically we do see a decline in those kinds of costs, especially as we can see the natural gas. The electric bill didn't go down quite that much over the summer, and I attribute a lot of that to the fact that we did have a very significant rate increase. We also had some decent usage. Mr. M does have a plug-in hybrid car, and so we definitely use some electricity plugging that sucker in because it's just into our standard, grid stuff. There's no bank or anything like that. But All the same, I'm anticipating that as it gets colder, we will certainly be using more natural gas because our furnace is a gas heater. I do have a little space heater that's, it's small. It's like a little box that is over by the computer desk. So because the room that I do my work in that has a computer for my job is not the most energy efficient, I anticipate I'll probably be using that a little bit more, which I'm sure will boost the electric use. I do want us to start using the fireplaces a little bit more. We didn't really use them last year. The dogs aren't huge fans of them because of the popping noises from the wood, but you got to do what you got to do. We do have an issue with the one in the area where I do have my desk, in that when he was a puppy, Gus chewed through the cord for the blower. So we need to, at some point, figure that out so that we can get even better use of the heat that having the fireplace will provide. We're lucky because we do have a decent amount of wood, though. The tree that came down that provided that was a while ago, so it's been out in the elements for quite some time. And so how much of it is still, relatively viable is remains to be seen. Let me put it that way. But anyway, let's move on. We have got our savings, which we did $25 for the emergency fund. We'll skip the extra. And then, of course, our standard, we'll just leave the buffer at 200 for now until we get done with this process. So the whole section here is 225. We'll add that to our running total, which brings us to $3,251.41 of income left. Cash envelopes are also an area where we don't typically have a lot of change. So we're just going to copy most of this over. But we did end up not using the entire $100 of the gas. Instead, we only used $40, and since it was more than, $25, that extra $60 got reconstituted back into just the checking account budget. So we will definitely be seeing an impact from that lack of usage for the positive, which is good. All right, almost done here. And because the only difference is that we have a 40 here instead of 100, I'm just going to take 560 and subtract 60, which I guess I could have done that math myself just without the calculator. Oh, golly. It's late, so that is my excuse, and I am going to stick with it. But yeah, so our cash envelope costs ended up only being the 500. So we will take, where's our remainder? 3251.41 and subtract 500 from that. And that gives us a remainder of $2,751.41. If the video is a little bit jumpy, I apologize. I don't know why, but I have been incredibly sneezy today. So I'm trying to not blow your eardrums out with my sneezing. All right, so the Discover payment of $613, second of two of them, did happen. We'll skip the extra, and so we still have $613 here. We'll go ahead right there and subtract $613, which means we are left with $2,138.41. I've got my notes over here. I also did not use my entire $30. I only used $16 this time around. So that's a little bit of a bump in what we'll have left over as well. So that brings our remaining income down to $2,122.41. We've got, oh, let's scooch. There we go. We've got the $100 for the applesauce and cider, which we are now at the $200 that we are going to use for that. I did go on the Orchard's website. Unfortunately, we will not be able to do you pick because that is pretty much done for the season for almost all of the apples. I want to say I didn't see any of the apple varieties that had you pick as an option still. They have also transitioned, or will be transitioning on the 4th of November to just having their fruit stand open. And the one variety that I really, really want to make sure that we get some of, Wixon crab apples, those are in and available. I hope that they'll be there when we're able to go. We are targeting probably the 3rd week of November, before the Thanksgiving holiday. So it'll be the last time that their stand is actually open for the season, because it'll close in right before Thanksgiving. So that's just the best that we could do with the schedule that Mr. M has as far as work and everything, and us both wanting to be involved and stuff like that. But that is coming. I am very much looking forward to it. I hope that they have cider donuts to go along with the, beautiful apples that we plan on buying. And I have a feeling, because in the area where this orchard is, this farm is, it's a gorgeous farming just community in general. And so there are a lot of farms out there that offer a lot of different things, and some that offer a lot of the same things. So we'll probably drop into a couple of other favorite places to get different things. Mr. M likes, I think they're called the Draper Sisters. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to actually look that up. But he really likes their raw, unfiltered cider, so he'll sometimes get some of that, even though he makes his own. But his is more of a hard cider anyway. So I don't know if they do a hard cider. But again, I digress. We are at $100 here, so we are going to subtract that $100 from our total. And we'll get all the way down to the bottom. 100, and that will leave us with $2,022.41 left over. So we are going to do our normal triage at the 90% level. So we'll just take what we've got here, subtract 90%, and that means for savings we are going to have $202. So let me put that over here, 202. And we've got 41 cents over here. So our rollover will be $200.41. And then we will take 2,022, subtract 202, and that leaves us with $1,820. Wow. I am so excited about that. That is almost $100 more than what we had expected. And that's just going to continue to make a huge dent in the debt that we have left with the Discover card. So to that end, let's finish out this little piece of paper here, 1820. And now we will go and see, what does the debt situation look like? What were we able to reduce in total for this pay period, and what were we able to do for the entirety of October? And we'll check in on the job cushion as well to see where things land there. So I will get that information and we'll be back in a jiffy. Okay, here we are. So last pay period, for the October 1st through 15th, we have our information there. We are now going to look and see what we are working with for this one. All right, so we started the pay period at $6,625.69 for the Discover card, and we have ended it at $4,317.75 for a reduction of $2,307.94. That doesn't quite match what we put into it, 613 plus 1820, because this is the one card that we still had that does have interest applied. So we did lose a little bit of it to interest, $125.06. Excuse me. Now for the overall for October, we're just taking the numbers that we see here. We had $8,513.69 to start the month with, October 1st. And as of October 31st, our balance is $4,317.75, as we can see up there, which was a reduction of $4,195.94. I did not remember to write down what the interest actually ended up being up there. I didn't do that during that review either, but we can potentially figure what that is at some point if we wanted to. But we have reduced this almost, is that by half? Let's see, 815 or 8513, 69 divided by 2. We have reduced this by almost half. If we had dropped it by $4,256 or dropped it to $4,256, that would have been the halvesy mark. So we were just off. But still, $4,195.94. If this had been a 0% card, we would have hit that mark. I am not complaining, however. This is amazing. I am thrilled to bits. I wish we could have gotten to the 4,000 or under, but I'm going to take this. This is absolutely a win. Okay, so next, the job cushion as of October 31st, 2024. So we are looking at, for my PTO, and again, any of the items over here on the side that have an asterisk, they are not exact because I'm not sure how much is going to be taken out in taxes and fee, and like Social Security and all of that. So these numbers are a little bit on the iffy side. However, we are expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of $7,608 for the PTO that I have accrued so far. We are also expecting $4,292 for the severance that I am supposed to get once I get laid off. What we do control is how much we are saving and putting away, in real dollars and cents that we can actually access right now. And that total is $15,831.18. Let me scoot that up just a smidge. So if you add that all together, if I were to have lost my job at the end of October and not be working in November, we would have $27,731.18 to help us weather the process of me finding a new job, hopefully quickly, and being able to maintain our budget. So speaking of that, our current budget is $5,900. Now, what I did decide, kind of last minute, and that's why it's kind of jinky over here, is I decided to figure out what is our budget if we take the $1,225 out. That's the line item specifically for debt reduction. So if we were looking at no longer tackling debt because we had paid it off or whatever. I mean, obviously that's not the case right now. We still have this Discover card, we still have Mr. M's car, etc. But if we decided, for the interim, while I don't have a job, we are not going to tackle debt in the same way, and eliminate that 1225 as a requirement in our budget, then the amount becomes $4,675. So Mr. M's pay, the amount that we are calculating that he contributes each month, is $3,700. This is a new amount because we have dropped his baseline from $1,875 to $1,850 because we had that shorter check, or that smaller check, just to be on the safe side. Abundance of caution. So in doing that, that means my pay would need to cover $2,200 instead of the $2,150 it was going to do before, or in this scenario, $975. So that means at this current rate, if we divide this number by the 2,200, the 27,000 by 2,200, we have coverage for a $5,900 budget for 12.6 months roughly. If we're looking at the non-debt budget, not putting any specific amount towards debt, then we will have $2,800, 28.4 months of coverage for me to find a job. Now, this no debt piece is specifically talking about like credit cards and the Discover card in particular, because if we get this paid off, then the debt that we still have with Mr. M's car and his credit card, he has been paying towards that. It is coming out of his checking account, so it does not directly affect our budget and our checking account monies. There is an indirect impact because he does take money from his paycheck and it goes into his account, and then whatever is left after that set amount comes into ours. So if he didn't have that debt anymore, that set amount that he gets would likely change, and so more money would be available for the checking account. But we would be in a position, if we get this Discover card paid off, which I'm seeing we should still be able to do by the first pay period of December if everything works out properly, we could eliminate that debt cost and work with this particular budget and leave things as they have been, where Mr. M is solely putting payments towards those two items if we needed to. I don't like that idea. I do want us to be actively bringing those two items down, and so I don't anticipate that we will go this route and remove that 1225 from the budget. But it's always good to know, what our options are if something were to happen where that would need to be the case. So that's all I have. I hope this was interesting. I hope you are as excited as I am that we are making such awesome progress on the Discover. One last little bit of information about the job. I am supposed to be meeting with my boss later this week to get a little bit more of a heads up on what does December look like. But in having conversations with him, he laid out a bit of a timeline on what he kind of sees as providing us with an end date. And I'll be honest, I can't remember if I went over this already or not, because I've had this conversation with a lot of other people. But because for the bankruptcy part of things, the company needs to provide a plan for the liquidation. That plan then goes to people who are able to vote on it. I don't know the criteria of those who can vote. And my understanding is that is a 60-day process. There is then to be a hearing to kind of make the approval official if it does get approved, and that would happen within 30 days of when the vote is completed. That timeline kind of puts us in a February-esque area. Now, I don't know if it's at that point or if maybe about March is when they would start looking for a third party to then effectively take over whatever else is needed to be done, and the liquidation process could then start. But based on those kind of timelines, my boss was thinking if we're looking for an absolute end date of when this job should be kaput, March 31st is what he's thinking. It does not mean that me and or my team would be working through March 31st. There's the same likelihood of us doing that as us being let go December 1st. But for planning purposes and things like that, he is not anticipating there being any opportunities for the job to go beyond March 31st as a general rule. Now, I don't know what happens if the plan that is submitted does not get approved, how that could potentially change the timeline. But as far as me and my employees and the people in the departments that are still employed, I don't know if other people in leadership roles have kind of given that guideline as well. But at least for us, we are looking at there is a very unlikely chance that we will be working beyond March 31st of 2025. Up in the air if we'll continue working in December, January, February, but an almost surety that it would not go beyond March. With a caveat, he did throw out there that whatever third party comes in might have an interest in retaining legacy knowledge and possibly might offer people familiar with the job positions. I don't know if that would be like some kind of contract work, if it would be an actual sign on to their company and then be with them to go on to the next, company that they do this kind of work for, or what that would look like. He didn't put that out there as a likely scenario. He just put that out there as he could see this being something that somebody might pursue. So that would be the opportunity for the job to potentially continue on beyond a March. But obviously there's a lot of things that would have to fall into place for that to happen. And that's not something I'm hanging my hat on. That's basically it. So at this point, we are still working on a month-to-month basis, just like we have been since essentially August of 2023. But we now kind of have a date we can look at and say, well, it could die any day, but it's definitely going to die at the end of March. And so, people can start to make plans based around that. And that's, I think, helpful, even with the idea that for the next, 4-ish months, we could still be, on pins and needles each month, figuring out what we're going to do. Having a more of a drop dead date out there that we can point to and say, well, at least we know at this point it will be all said and done. I think that is a very good and helpful thing to have. So I will keep you guys all updated as, I have more information and we continue to, weather this situation and figure out what we're going to be doing into the future. But for now, thank you so much for watching, listening to me ramble, seeing how we are doing with the debt reduction and sticking to our budget. And as always, if you have any feedback, suggestions, questions, things like that, please do not hesitate to note those down below. If you've enjoyed watching, throw a like on there. Maybe consider subscribing if you do want to keep track of how we're doing as we continue to go on into the future. But other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I hope we see you in the next one.